Hello everyone, Patrick Fay here, and we are getting ready for the final of the 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan this weekend, tomorrow night actually. So if you can see my shirt here, it is a Liverpool jersey which is to represent England, being the closest thing I have to either an England or a South African jersey. So obviously an English soccer team, and they're on top of the table at the moment, so it seems like as good a reason as any to be wearing this, and obviously with a bit of the red as well to represent England. So, well, really 2 games to go, but one big one being the final coming up between England and South Africa tomorrow night, and also tonight, don't forget the 3rd place playoff between New Zealand and Wales. So going back to the semi-finals last week, England versus New Zealand, England winning that one 19-7, and something I certainly didn't see coming, and probably a lot of other rugby fans as well, probably with the exception of England fans, wouldn't have really been tipping them to win that. And 19-7, and their only try from Manu Tuilagi coming after only about a minute of play. Hadn't even really started watching the game properly, had walked into the room and they'd already scored. I think that really set the tone for the game actually. England got on the board nice and early and the All Blacks were rattled, and for the rest of the game it was just not the sort of All Blacks team that we're used to seeing. I think they're probably not used to falling behind early and having to play catch-up rugby, and they just really struggled to get themselves in the game, I think. Just made a lot of mistakes, but England just doing what they needed to do. They had that try, and courtesy of their accuracy with their penalty goals, that turned out to be enough. And when the All Blacks did finally get on the board in the second half, I guess that could have been a turning point, and probably the All Blacks even having a bit of luck there when they did get that try. That could have been where they got back into the game, but England didn't let that happen. And after that, they really managed to close things out. And in the end, a pretty dominant performance by England to send the All Blacks out of the World Cup, and that's their first win over New Zealand in about 15 years. And no one was really giving them much hope, and with that, they probably all of a sudden go to being favourites to win this tournament. Yeah, quite interesting really. You had England being the first team through, and all of a sudden you're not preparing for a final with the All Blacks in it. Was it going to be South Africa, or could it have been England versus Wales in the final, which is something I think would have been really good to see. Obviously the 2 neighbours there, and Wales could have been playing in their first final against the bigger brother, I guess. That didn't happen. So in the second semi-final, South Africa getting the win 19-16 over Wales. A pretty close scoreline there, but I think that South Africa just always looked like the team that were going to win. Wales had some chances, but it was a funny sort of a game. I think that if you look at the difference, England really went out there to win against the All Blacks, and that worked. Whereas you look at the second semi-final, it was a bit more like both teams went out trying not to lose. So not the most exciting sort of a game. I think, yeah, really starting to build up their totals on the back of penalty kicks. Something Australia would really like, to have someone with that real accuracy with the penalty kicks, obviously something that both South Africa and Wales had, keeping them both in the game. As I said, it's not a particularly exciting, it's not always the most exciting rugby to watch, but if it's got South Africa through to a final, and if it's the sort of thing that wins them a World Cup, well, I don't think you can argue too much with that. But With Wales, I just got the feeling they were just sort of hanging in there. They never really looked like a team that were going to win that game, unfortunately. And South Africa just grinding it out and doing what they needed to do. So two pretty different semi-finals, and for me it makes it really hard to pick how this final is actually going to pan out. So England and South Africa in a Rugby World Cup final, it's something we've seen before back in 2007. South Africa winning 15-6 on that occasion, and that's the last time that both those sides featured in a final, and also the last time that a team other than New Zealand won the World Cup. So we're going to have that again, and I guess what we're looking at is a South Africa win means they join New Zealand as teams to have won 3 times, or it could be England getting their second win, joining South Africa and Australia with 2 Rugby World Cup wins. So those are the 2 possibilities we're looking at there. And just going back to that 2007 final, that's 12 years, quite a long time in rugby terms, but South Africa actually do have 1 player remaining, that's Frans Steyn. Was in that winning side in 2007 and is the only player from either country still playing now. England had quite, looking at that, England had quite an ageing team in that 2007 World Cup. Now they're obviously a much younger side, so a bit of a difference there. But yeah, just a little point of interest, 1 player that will be playing in this match has won a World Cup before. So taking a look at the overall history between England and South Africa, it slightly favours South Africa. So they've played 42 times over the years, 25 wins for South Africa, 15 for England and 2 draws. And if you look at the World Cups, again that would be in South Africa's favour really. So South Africa have a win over them in the quarterfinals of '99 and beat them in both the pool stage and then again in the final in 2007. So the only other meeting they've had at the Rugby World Cup was during the pool stages in 2003. England won that game and of course went on to win the final that year. So that could be another little thing for South Africa. If you're looking back, they won their first World Cup 1995. 12 years later, they won again in 2007. So going by that logic, it's been another 12 years. 2019 is their year. What's working against them? No team, and I find this a little bit surprising. No team has ever dropped a pool game and gone on to win the tournament. So South Africa would be the first, having lost their opening game to New Zealand, and they've actually managed to avoid having to play them again, but have gone further than them in the tournament. If you look at more recent results between England and South Africa, England toured there in 2018, and South Africa won that series 2-1. But England won the last game in that series, and then also won a test at Twickenham in almost a year ago, so in November of 2018, 12-11. So England won the last meeting. Have actually won the last 2 times they've played, but South Africa winning that series last year. So yeah, look, not a whole lot to go on there really. Again, it's one of those things where I think we've got to look a little bit closer at how they've gone in this World Cup, and that doesn't make it all that much easier to predict. I think both teams have looked really strong, obviously with the exception of South Africa losing that first game. It's a tough one to call. I think the only thing I know for certain is we're going to get some of the England fans going, "Come on England," and singing "Sweet Chariot," and we're going to get a lot of box kicks from Faf de Klerk. But beyond that, it's really hard for me to say exactly what I think is going to happen here. To be honest, I'm probably edging towards England just on the back of their performance last week. I think they were the more convincing of the two in their semi-final win, and obviously taking out a huge opponent in the All Blacks in the process. But then again, beating the All Blacks is not always the greatest thing. So that's been a bit of a theme. Have they played their final one game too early? I actually don't think they have. It's not as if that game sort of took every last bit out of them. I think they won it pretty convincingly in the end. We've seen in the past, like in '99, France beat New Zealand in the semi-final, and that was almost like their final. I think, yeah, that they did the hard yards in the semi-final and were, Australia had an easier semi-final and then won that final quite easily. It's not the only time we've seen that either. So I think it's the '99 World Cup is the only time you've had a team knock New Zealand out before the finals and actually go on to win it. Looking at '99, France knocked the All Blacks out and got beaten in the final. That was the same in 2003, and in 2007 it was France who knocked them out and they didn't even get to the final. So a couple of talking points. England going in with the same team that beat the All Blacks, so a good sign for them to be able to go in unchanged, and South Africa get Cheslin Colby back from injury. So both going in with pretty strong teams, and yeah, I think should be a really good game. South Africa, just such a big pack, and the guys that they've got coming off the bench, you know, the average height of their second rowers is about 6'8", and then the guy RG Snyman, the guy coming off the bench, he's even bigger. So there's just, there's a lot of size in that South African pack. They've got plenty of speed as well. But you know, England I think can match them pretty well across the board. But as I said, tough one to call. But I would slightly be leaning towards England for this one. Obviously, another thing, if they can do that. A rare double, that would be winning the Cricket World Cup and the Rugby World Cup in the same year. So every year since '99, those two have fallen in the same year, and so the last time that happened, 1999, Australia actually did it, won the Cricket World Cup and the Rugby World Cup in the same year, which seems a little bit hard to fathom now, but 20 years ago it happened, and now England have got a chance to do the same. So obviously not all rugby countries play cricket and vice versa, but if you have a look at all the countries that have won the Rugby World Cup, so Australia, England, New Zealand, South Africa, they're all cricket countries as well. But yeah, as we know, New Zealand have made the final of the Cricket World Cup without ever winning, and South Africa have that sort of choker's tag in cricket, but not the case so much in rugby. They've only been in the final twice, and they've won both of those. Where you look in England, they were also in the final in '91, which they lost, and 2007 they lost as well. So they're 1 from 3 when it comes to World Cup finals, with that win over Australia back in 2003. So just taking a quick look at footy tips, and they have England as the favourite there. So 79% to South Africa 21, tipping England there, and I think that's pretty fair. In my eyes, they are the favourites. They haven't lost a game at this thing, and they still haven't really looked like losing either, and that includes against the All Blacks last week. So they just need to do that for one more game. But also that stat of teams never winning the World Cup after losing a pool game just seems like one of those things, one of those records that will be broken eventually, and this is as good a time as any for South Africa. So I'm going to go England in the final, but I think it's going to be a pretty close game, and just that precision with the penalty kicks, that could easily be something that came into it. We look at the last time, 2007, when these teams played in a final, didn't even have a try scored. So that's the sort of thing we might see. It could be, it could be a real grind, and just sort of building your score up on those penalties, or who knows, we might see England getting on board with a try quite early again. Really a matter of wait and see, but I think it's going to be a good game. So I guess the other one not to forget is that tonight we have the third place playoff between New Zealand and Wales. So even though both missing out on the chance to go through to the final and have a shot at winning, they do still have one more game to play, which for me, I feel like it's got to be a tough game to get up for, really. Just knowing that there is still something for coming third, but really I think the disappointment of not making it through to the final is a bit of a blow. And it's not uncommon. I mean, they have the third place game in the FIFA World Cup as well, and obviously you look at the Olympics, you get that as well, but they're actually playing for a medal. I don't know, I don't see that much value in it. I'm not taking anything away from Wales and New Zealand. I think finishing third and fourth is still a very good achievement, but actually, having them go out and play another game, don't know. But it's always been a part of it, and for Wales, they have one third place finish way back in the first World Cup in 1987, so a chance for them to equal their best performance. And New Zealand have taken out third spot as well in 91 and 2003. But I guess the other thing, it's another matchup between Wales and New Zealand, and this the head-to-head there is it's quite astounding. I thought they have played 34 times in their history, and that goes back over 100 years, I think. And 31 wins to New Zealand, only 3 to Wales, and the last of those coming way back in 1953, so 66 years, and they've played 30 times since, and the All Blacks have won 30 in a row against Wales. So they've never played in a third place playoff in a Rugby World Cup before, but on that stat, it's just got to be New Zealand, doesn't it? And really, despite Wales being quite strong in Europe, their record against the All Blacks is really not a good one. And in that 60 odd years and 30 games, it's not even as if they've come close to beating them, really. You've got to go back to 2004, so 15 years for the last time they had a close game, the All Blacks winning that one 26-25. And before that, you go back even further to 1978 for another game that the All Blacks only won by a point. So not only quite a long streak of All Blacks wins, but take a look at it, most of them pretty convincing wins for New Zealand. A few every now and then where Wales have come close, but recent games doesn't paint a very pretty picture for Wales. Hard to go past New Zealand in tonight's game, and I think they'll take out third spot. So we're nearly there. After nearly 6 weeks, just 2 more games to go, and then we're finished for another Rugby World Cup. Look, this is the most closely I've ever followed a tournament, and it's been really interesting to watch a lot of rugby and to go out and do these videos every week, something I've really enjoyed. So hoping I might be able to do one more video next week to sort of wrap things up, but for now I've got a couple more games to go, obviously including the final tomorrow night, and even despite that disappointment that Australia didn't get there, still one be watching with great interest, and looking forward to seeing how it goes. So thanks very much to everyone that's been watching these videos. It means a lot to me to have had that support. So thanks again, and I'll see you all later. Bye.